There are a lot of two-way guys, in high school and college and stuff like that. And honestly, really any comparison to him is always kind of cool. It's great, with the nicknames and all that type of stuff. It's always been really interesting and fun to me, especially,
Jac Caglianone.
He's Shohei Ohtani, man, with his mega deal and all that he's done and kind of paved the way for two-way guys at the next level. It's something I take a lot of pride in, so it's always really cool.
On today's episode, we have Jac Caglianone, a two-way star at University of Florida, a pitcher and a hitter, drawing comparisons to Shohei Ohtani. He will be a top draft pick in the 2024 draft. We sit down and talk with him about what he's doing to brand himself in the NIL space, what it's like being a two-way star at a university, and then also breaking down in-game footage and what his thought process is as a hitter and a pitcher. Show and Go starts now. Jack, I'm gonna get straight into it. Ohtani comparisons. You've heard them over and over again. I'm not going to put Shohei Ohtani on you, but I don't think it's wild to think that you are in the realm of that at some point in your career. Tell me what you think about hearing about being compared to Shohei Ohtani, and is that something like you embrace or you kind of throw it out the window? What's the thought process there?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of be compared to somebody of that stature has always kind of been really cool.
Yeah.
There are a lot of two-way guys, in high school and college and stuff like that. And honestly, really any comparison to him is always kind of cool. It's great, with the nicknames and all that type of stuff. It's always been really interesting and fun to me, especially,
Jac Caglianone.
He's Shohei Ohtani, man, with his mega deal and all that he's done and kind of paved the way for two-way guys at the next level. It's something I take a lot of pride in, so it's always really cool.
That's cool, man. The two-way thing, you mentioned it too, is like it's something that seems to be a little bit on the rise. Obviously, he's done it to the best of anybody, right? But at the same time, I'm interested to know, is that something that you want to try to continue to do as long as possible? Is there something that you want to focus on moving forward, or is it something you want to like, hey, let me take this as long as it can go?
Yeah, I mean, my goal from the jump has always kind of been to continue to do it two-way. I just felt that I've been able to handle it at the college level with classes and all that type of stuff. Yeah. So being at the next level with, no school or anything like that and kind of focus more on both sides of the ball and, that's your job.
Right.
I feel like it could only get better. So I'm, really hoping, I get the opportunity to, and I plan to. So, yeah.
What's the toughest part of doing both? Whether it be mentally, physically, you mentioned classes. People forget that you're still a student athlete, right, at Florida. What's been the toughest part of doing that?
I mean, really in the weight room, you kind of, you got to continue to train like a pitcher just so you can maintain the mobility and kind of the explosiveness. Yeah.
But you don't look like a pitcher. Like I'm looking at your body right here, you swolled up, but and because a lot of guys are trying to stay like real loose. So I'm wondering, how do you balance that?
Yeah, so we have a great strength coach at Florida, Sean Burke, and he's really always kind of kept me anchored with that type of stuff.
Wow.
We have workout plans specific for pitchers and hitters, and I follow the pitching side of things.
Okay.
And, that's been integral. And on the mental side, it's really kind of just separating the two. You have a bad at bat or something, you try not to carry that to the mound with you. My thing last year and going into this year is, on the days that you pitch, like, your priority is on the mound to give your team a good, quality start, put them in the best chance to win. And that's kind of the biggest goal. And one thing that, Coach O'Sullivan and Coach Drallman have really helped me with is separating the two. Not letting the bad AB kind of carry over to the mound and vice versa. And, went well last year. And, last year was kind of like the test run. So now, you have all the kinks kind of figured out. And, yeah, it's just exciting for this year.
That's the crazy thing to me is last year was the test run. Like, you had the Tommy John early on in your collegiate career, didn't pitch the first year and just hit. But I think to me it's like there's opportunity for you to continue getting better as a pitcher. And as a hitter, what do you kind of take in to the second season after learning from last year?
Yeah, I mean, on the pitching side of things, there are a lot of ups and downs. the days where you felt great and everything was working, you felt like you finally figured it out, and the next weekend, could be a little rough. And, you kind of go back to the drawing board. Everybody says, the first year back off Tommy John, you're still finding your stuff and figuring everything out.
But you're finding your stuff at 100 miles an hour. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah. It's always been a work in progress. The recovery from Tommy John's really no joke. I try really hard to kind of hone in my skills and kind of get back to where I was before Tommy John, like back in high school. And really the biggest thing for me is to kind of, take it day by day. You can't really look at the big picture of things. You got to just, put yourself and your team in the best position to, have success. And with that mentality, through this fall, it's really helped a lot. And kind of, just put your head down and work and just take it day by day, and it's helped a lot.
Well, you mentioned something that I think is important to talk about is like not looking at the big picture too much. And I'm sure that's tough to do, especially hearing draft prospects and all this stuff. Obviously, you're in the first round. People are talking about that. But I've seen you play, and I personally think like doing both of those things has you an opportunity to be doing something that nobody quite can do, especially at your height. Already doing 33 home runs last year. So I think there's something different about it, specifically at the collegiate level. But I want to know, how do you stay focused on the right now instead of like, because obviously you have aspirations to play professionally. How do you stay locked into today and trying to do what you can on an everyday basis?
Yeah, I mean, our biggest thing and kind of what we preach at Florida is really, the faster you wrap yourself up in the club, the faster, all your personal goals will kind of align. You don't need to be sitting there worrying about July or anything. And, I try my best not to even think about it just because we're not there yet. You still have a whole year to go. You still have a lot of hard work to put in. And, I'm not even really thinking about the draft. It's trying to get back to Omaha and win the last game of the year, and that's the biggest thing. But Coach Drawman's really been kind of influential with all that and kind of keeping everybody, on the straight and narrow, because that was the biggest thing last year with Wyatt and, Herson and Josh and all those guys. The biggest thing wasn't worrying about where you're going to get picked or what, the draft was going to look like, because you're worried about representing Florida and putting, the best out there for everybody in that dugout and trying to just be the best version of yourself day in and day out. And that's kind of been the biggest thing.
I know it got to be easier said than done, because obviously you want to continue furthering on your career. But I commend you for being able to stay focused and do what you need to do from a team aspect, because I watched you last year and I got to call some of your games and I watched your team, and I felt like there was a unity that you don't normally see a lot of times with guys that have top prospects on their team. So I think that what you're talking about is something that a lot of people can learn from. And I want to know if there's something that you could give like a young kid that's high school, maybe looking at the collegiate level or even professionally, that's doing pitching and hitting, doing both things, a two-way threat. What would you kind of tell them to keep them locked in to continuing to have success doing that?
The biggest thing that kind of gets overlooked is, you have more opportunity to fail doing both. And, baseball's a game of failure. There's not going to be those days where you throw 7 shutout innings and hit 2 home runs.
There might be
100%. There might be. Don't get me wrong.
I hope there is for your sake.
But it's kind of just sticking to it. Depending on where you're playing on that given day, if you're pitching and stuff, and especially when you're working through it. Really just to have fun with it. Everybody really does both growing up. And then you kind of separate, which one you're better at as you get to high school and college and whatnot. But the biggest thing I can say is, get in the weight room as soon as possible. Start preparing your body to maintain playing on both sides of the ball. Because my biggest thing and what I, try to get to is just kind of experiencing the longevity of it, not getting worn down. And, thankfully last year I was able to play in all the games. And, the biggest thing is just have fun with it, take it day by day, and don't let it be something that, consumes you and knock you down if something doesn't go well. There's plenty of baseball to be played.
Wow, that's really well said, because I think a lot of times as athletes we're so focused on like I got to continue to get better. I got to, I can't fail. It's almost like that attitude of I can't fail. But I think what you mentioned about like failure is going to happen and more opportunity for failure when you do both. What has like allowed you to stay grounded in that mindset, you think? Like, is that something that you had in high school or something you had growing up, or is that something that you've learned kind of along the way in college? Where does that come from?
Really, college. In high school, it's kind of like I want immediate results and I want immediate success.
Right.
You get to play in the best conference of the SEC, and you get into the thick of things, and you have those 0 for weekends, and you have the shaky starts, and then you just got to kind of take a step back and realize that there's a lot of game left to be played.
Yeah.
And really, just not being too caught up in it. You can't look down the road, like I say. I mean, you got to just take it truly day by day. If it's not a good day this day, it could be a good day tomorrow. And, you can't let that dwindle your work ethic, your training. You still got to train hard, and you still got to check all the right boxes off the field in order to have success on the field.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm hoping, obviously, this is your last year of playing collegiate baseball. I hope you win a national championship and all of that. But what I will ask you is, what is kind of the lasting effect that you want to have if this is your last year of college? I ask you because I know for me, when I was playing, I'm sure this is the same for a lot of guys after their sophomore year. Okay, I know I'm going to get drafted junior year, God willing, but I want to have fun that last year. I went to school in Vegas, so I was like, last year as a junior, I'm living it up. What's the mentality in knowing that this could possibly be your last year at the university?
I know it's definitely going to stink. The last time I take the jersey off 100%, because Florida's just been such an integral part of, who I am as a player and how much I've learned and kind of grown as a person there as well. Really just going into this year, it's all eyes are set on a national championship. The outside distractions, the off the field stuff, doesn't really pique my interest whatsoever. My goal is to win as many games as possible, move on maybe, and, just kind of get things rolling. But, yeah, I'm really just focused on the field kind of attributes and all that.
That's dope. That's dope. What are the things you're trying to improve upon from last year? Because obviously last year you had an amazing season. Individually, collectively as a team, you guys had a great season, but obviously want to go further than you did last year. But for you individually, what are you working on as a hitter, and then what are you working on as a pitcher?
Yeah, I mean, really it's kind of just revolved around walks on both sides. At the plate you want more of them, on the mound you want less of them. And that's kind of been my mantra this fall, and it's gone really well. I feel like I'm in a good spot on the mound, and at the plate we really worked on kind of just picking one spot out in the zone and sticking with it.
Okay.
I'm a very aggressive type hitter,
What was normally, I guess, the approach before picking out one zone? Just being able to hit, kind of cover more of the plate?
Yeah, I found myself kind of getting caught up in trying to cover both sides of the plate, and you can't really do that in an AB. And that's another thing that Coach Drallman really helps me with. Seeing the ball up has been a big thing too. People chase in the dirt.
Yeah.
So kind of eliminating that aspect of the game and just kind of picking that one spot out where you know that you can do damage. And with me, the first pitch dominant is really just, it could be the best pitch you get all AB. Every pitcher wants to start out with strike one.
Right.
So that's kind of why, you get so aggressive in those counts. But yeah, for me, if it's not in that one spot, work the AB through, hopefully draw a walk, and just be productive for my team.
I think that's what's cool about watching you though too, and kind of evaluating you is I saw your ability to get to a lot of pitches last year. And as you grow as a hitter, and you're only 20 years old, right? So as you grow as a hitter, you're going to be able to start to narrow down more your approach, more what you're looking for. But I think it benefits you knowing that you can get to a lot of different pitches. I'll show you video later on how you got to so many different pitches just off a home run. So I guess, is it more of a, I don't want to give away your secrets, but is it more look, and you talked about looking up, but is it more look in, more looking away? You're really good with the ball down. Is there a specific spot that you're looking for early?
Honestly, it changes with the pitcher. You know, you kind of find out what their strengths are and how they kind of tend to throw to lefties or to righties.
Right.
And, you know, we usually have a very good game plan going into games of knowing what this dude's tendencies are.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you a different map every game. So there's really not one set specific spot day in and day out. But, yeah, that's really
That's
it.
good. I mean, no, I think that's how you got to lean on scouting reports, right? You got to lean on maybe some analytics and whatnot. So I think that, you know, that sounds great. I want to dive into NIL because a big part of what I'm doing with this show is kind of talking about the branding aspect of the player, because after baseball, you still have to live life, right? And you have an opportunity to kind of brand, market yourself. And with college, this NIL thing is huge. I seen a partnership with Rapsodo. I don't know if you have any other partnerships, but how did that come about, and how have you tried to use NIL to help benefit you or the people around you?
Yeah, I mean, NIL is definitely a crazy thing nowadays. It's really new. My freshman year was kind of when everything got cleared and, you know, all the dollars started getting thrown around and whatnot. But it's been really cool to kind of see the different brands that reach out and, you know, want you to represent, you know, them. But, you know, I have a really good team that kind of figures things out for me. And, you know, I have an idea of what I like my interests and what I would like to be a part of. And then they have their things that, you know, think would help to benefit me.
Right.
Rapsodo was honestly really cool. The shoot was awesome. All those guys have been really great. They reached out on Twitter through my Twitter, like, direct messages.
Wow.
And it's kind of crazy how, like, partnerships can be through, like, direct messages nowadays. It's like just shoot them a DM. And thankfully I checked them because I rarely ever check any of that type of stuff. So that was really
It's probably
neat.
good that you're not seeing all that type of stuff.
Yeah. But the whole NIL landscape, it's really great for all the athletes. It gives players, you know, a great opportunity to monetize themselves and kind of just put a face to their brand. And like you said, it helps build your own brand.
Right.
Baseball definitely isn't anything like football, but, you know, as the game gains more popularity, which it, you know, has exponentially in the past few years, I think, you know, if no rules get imposed, NIL is just going to keep getting crazier and crazier. And, you know, I'm all for it. You know, all these guys, like, we work really hard.
Absolutely.
And, you know, it's a great thing. And, you know, they say too much of a good thing's a bad thing. So I don't know what it'll look like in 5 years or anything like that. But right now, you know, it's just really cool to see and kind of be, I guess, like the lab rats for it for the first few years of it.
Right. And is that Rapsodo obviously something that is huge technology within the game? Is that something that you use personally or have used? I know it's something that's very popular. Is that something that you continue to use if you use it now?
Yeah. So the model that they ended up giving me, it was their pitching and hitting model.
Okay.
So I haven't had the opportunity to use it on the field yet, just because when we take BP as a team, you don't really have any of that stuff out.
Right.
But being back home, I've started to and kind of just seen, you know, the numbers on the hitting side of things. It's really, you know, what's the EV and what's the distance. But on the pitching side, it's helped a lot with, you know, rather than throwing a ball 100 times and feeling it out, you can have that instant feedback to kind of help you critique your pitches without putting as much work on your arm.
Right.
And I think that's just been really helpful and beneficial for me and everybody else at Florida, and I'm sure every other university or high school or training area that uses them.
Right. That's cool. Well, I guess whether it be NIL, branding, marketing, what is kind of what do you want people to associate with you? What's kind of like the legacy you want to leave at this point, or even maybe moving on down the road? What do people need to know about Jac Caglianone?
Really, I mean, I kind of just pride myself with the work ethic and things. You know, touching back with our strength coach, he's always, you know, letting me get that extra lift in throughout the week. And kind of, it doesn't really have to do with any brands per se. I mean, one of the coolest things that could ever happen to me is, you know, kids are playing wiffle ball in the yard and they're mimicking my swing or, you know, playing like me or something like that. That's always kind of been the dream.
Well, I know that's true because my kids came to watch you play and they wanted to meet you and they got a picture with you. So that was pretty cool for me. Is like, yo, you guys don't want to be daddy, but you guys want to be Jack. That's go ahead, go ahead. But no, so I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah. So really, it's just kind of just being somebody that they can look up to.
Yeah.
Just showing really working hard and everything that you do, and just kind of giving your best foot forward is always going to be the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's just kind of the mark that I leave.
That's dope, man. That's dope. Let's dive into some footage, man. Let's go check out the board over here and kind of look and see how your gameplay has evolved and what some of those things are that you love to do in the game. Here, I'll give you a bat just in case you need to demonstrate anything too. Yeah, let's get into it, man. I guess the first thing I'll ask you is, from a mentality standpoint, not necessarily physically, but mentally, what is the thought process as a hitter, and what's the thought process as a pitcher? Is there anything that is similar, anything that is completely different? How do you kind of view both sides?
Yeah, so one thing that I've kind of tried to start doing, and not really kind of, it's something that the coaches and I have really been trying hard to do, is kind of get that same killer mentality that I have in the box as I do on the mound. The pitching, it was the first year, you're new to it. You're really just trying to go out there and have a solid start, and that's really all you're worrying about.
Yeah.
But now it's more of a, you want to kind of put your mark on that other team, and you want to just go out there and shove and dominate.
Yeah.
And, at the plate, I'm very big on, just telling myself, hey, this guy's nothing to beat me with. I'm just going to stick to my guns. I'm going to hit a ball hard somewhere. I'm going to drive in some runs for my team, and I'm just going to be productive. And that's really what I'm just trying to carry over to the mound. Just go right at these guys.
Yeah.
There's nothing to beat around the bush. Your stuff should be good enough. It is good enough to compete with anybody.
Right.
So that's kind of where I've been at, and that's just kind of what I've been riding with this fast fall, and everything's just kind of been falling, and it's been good.
Dang, I love that, because it's more of a confidence mentality. It's not like, it's not laid back necessarily, but it's more like attacking. I'm always on the attack mode, and I love that aspect of it. At least both of that being similar on both sides. I want to show you some video of, obviously, last year, how it kind of finished for you guys. It wasn't the best way it finished, but I love the two home run game in the College World Series. But for you, what's been the lasting taste that it's left in your mouth, and what is it that you can carry over from last year going into this year?
Yeah, last year did not end the way that we wanted it to. It kind of left that poor taste in our mouth. Sully always talked about, his goal and everybody's goal should be to win the last game of the year. Right. And that's what it was. And obviously,
that was a bomb, by the way. That was ridiculous.
That one, it just went straight up. And luckily, the wind carried just enough.
I thought the wind was kind of pushing it the way that you hit it, and you were juiced too.
I'll tell you what, off the bat, I was like, dang, man, I missed that. But yeah, last year didn't end the way that we wanted to. Still a great year, not even just personally. Yeah, it was all cool and everything, but to kind of be with that group of guys, that's by far the best team that I've ever played with and the best team that I've ever been a part of. And kind of just the accountability aspect of things has always been really big for us.
Yeah.
And, just having those guys that we did last year was amazing.
That's cool. Your face lights up talking about those dudes.
It was great.
I could tell that it was a tight-knit group, and but I'm looking at even the crowd. What was the atmosphere like? Because you talk about in fall, all you talk about is getting to the College World Series, winning a title. What is it like when you actually get to that point to where you have an opportunity to do so?
Yeah, you kind of carry what you've been doing all year. You shouldn't really be trying to do much different going into it, because the moment you try to start doing too much is the more, things start to kind of wiggle and whatnot.
So you're trying not to let the atmosphere come into play too much.
Yeah. Obviously the first game, everybody's got butterflies in their stomachs because you're playing in front of, 25,000 people. And it's one of those feelings that's like no other, make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. But once you settle in, it's, you realize, it's just baseball. It's just another game. It's the same game you've been playing all year. Now you get to do it on the biggest stage of college baseball, and it was great.
That's awesome, man. That's so awesome. I wanted to get into just batting practice, right? Guys are working on certain things a lot of times during batting practice. Is there anything specifically pregame that you're trying to do to get yourself ready when the game is going?
Yeah, one thing for me is not getting too pull happy, and kind of really focusing on staying in the big part of the field, really, left center to right center. You know, it's kind of like that pro style BP round. You know, you try to take the first round, middle oppo.
Right.
Second round, you kind of just stay up the middle and kind of just feel how you're feeling that day, really.
Right.
And obviously, as like, you know, you get to your later rounds, you can start having a little more fun with
Let
it.
it go
and
a
just,
little bit.
Yeah, and just kind of get a little loose. Yeah, really, my approach just kind of sets the tone for the game. But there's some days you have bad BP and the game ends up turning out well. So, yeah, but really just the mindset's just to kind of stay through the middle and feel yourself get to that point of contact where you want it to be at.
Yeah.
That's kind of been the biggest thing.
I think that's, we talk a lot about staying inside the baseball and, being able to go the other way. And I think that's one thing I noticed about your game is you're willing to let the ball travel and drive it the other way, knowing that you have power the other way. How do you allow yourself to trust your hands, trust your rotation? How do you stay focused on not pulling when you know you could probably pull every single ball, even on the outer half?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is kind of like you said, you really just got to trust it. You know, you've been there and you've taken so many hacks in the cages leading up to every game and stuff. And through practice, you get to really know your body better than anybody. You know, you can hit a ball kind of way back and it'll still, you know, turn out to be something special just because your hands just react to it.
Right.
And really, it's just kind of natural because once you're in the box, you're not thinking about, I want to take this here, I want to put this here.
Right.
You just react to it and, you know, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
But as long as you're kind of feeling yourself and trying to get to that specific point where you're driving the ball, you know, to the center field, it all kind of clicks. And, you know, if you pull one, you pull one.
Right.
If you hit it the other way, you hit it the other way. It's just kind of one of those things. It's just a trade-off.
Yeah.
You know, you're happy with whatever.
Well, I like how you mentioned kind of just trying not to think too much, right? Just trying to kind of let it happen within the game. You can think like middle of the way during batting practice, but once it comes game time, you're ready to go. And you're not thinking one specific thing. I guess like shift-wise, guys moving over, any of that stuff you think about, okay, I need to shoot it the other way, or is it just still let me play my game?
It's really just play your game because half the time you hit a ball hard enough where nobody really wants to get in front of it. And that's kind of helped a lot. You hit a hard ball up the middle, even with the shift, sometimes, you know, they'll have them playing like he is, and then, you know, it'll go up the middle.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, you're mindful of it. Teams typically try to go in when they have the shift put on. But, you know, if they make that a mistake away and you just hit a little, you know, cheap grounder to third base, nobody's there, so it's a free knock. But, yeah, I mean, the approach really stays the same. You just got to hit a ball hard.
Any guys in scoring position, kind of the same thing, just staying focused on doing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, less than 2 outs, if there's somebody on third, you know, it's and if the infield or the corners aren't in, it's really, you know, worst comes to worst, hit a ball in the air.
Yeah.
Like, get that guy home no matter what.
Team player.
Yeah, I mean, you got to win. That's our biggest thing. Runners on second, you just got to move the guy over. Runners on first, just try not to ground into a double play. Yeah. That's kind of the simplest way to put it.
That's it, man. I love that. Okay, we got this was something I found off of TikTok. Like, I'm big on the TikTok, right? So I seen the guy, whoever it was, posted almost every single home run you hit last year. The one thing that jumped like immediately out to me was like the different locations of the baseball. We talked a lot about kind of walks and how you want to try to maybe evolve that a little more into the game. Like, what do you think when you see this? Because I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, man, my thing's always kind of been you got to hit a ball hard and you got to put your team in the best chance and the best position to kind of have success. And really, it's just reaction. Yeah. I mean, I go up there, and the biggest thing for me is just you got to stay on time for the fastball. You know, you're facing all these dudes that throw above 90 and everything. You know, they're all good fastballs.
But at the same time, you probably get so much more off speed than a lot of or guys are trying to trick you, trying to bust you way in, go soft away. Like, I'm sure guys are trying to fool you all the time.
Yeah.
But that's where mistakes happen, too.
That's where all the mistakes happen. That's where, you know, the scouting reports all come in handy. Because, I mean, you know, a bunch of dudes, and everybody's pretty much fastball heavy. Yeah. There's a few dudes who are obviously more slider and whatnot, and you have that idea going into the AB. Yeah, I mean, my thing's really been kind of, you know, you're going to get a fastball, be on time for the fastball, and if, you know, it's not a fastball, react. Just react to it. Try to keep your hands back, and that's kind of just what I stuck with.
Simple. I love that. Just simplifying it as much as possible. All right, this is something I wanted to pull up too, because you talked a little bit about the weight room, and as we see Coach O'Sullivan, like you be getting after it, and I think that there's something to the athleticism too that I think that's allowed you to have success on both sides. What have you learned from kind of your early days of training and then kind of evolving to where you are now? Is there things that you're doing differently or things that you're trying to evolve in the weight room?
Yeah, so really, I got really big into the gym kind of when the pandemic came. We had like online school, so we didn't have to worry about going to classes. So me and my buddy, we would go to the gym and we would spend, 2 hours there a day, just, really trying to get big. And we weren't really focusing a whole lot on the whole explosiveness of things.
Right. Which we just saw, like you basically a 40-inch vert almost.
Yeah.
What is the vert? Because I literally just saw you like just get up there. What?
The most it's been was like a 39 something. I think it
everybody
was this day. This day was it. But yeah, I mean, we work with Dylan Smith in Tampa. He's very big on mobility and explosiveness.
Yeah,
and that's
shout out to Dylan.
Exactly. And that's kind of been our thing. So every offseason you come home, you kind of get to hone in more on like that fast twitch type of muscles. And you get away from being a bodybuilder and you want to be functional for your sport still. And that's kind of been my biggest thing, because I like lifting more than anybody. And I spend a lot of time in the gym, and everybody wants to be big, but you still got to be functional.
Yeah.
And that's where, the whole mobility and the arm care and the stretching and all that type of stuff plays a role. And there's a lot of emphasis on it, and it kind of carries over to the field. And what we're doing now, it's been great. Just sticking with it.
And I'm sure a lot of recovery too, as far as kind of you doing both. I had to bring this up because last year, I'm not going to dive into the whole thing because this was, see if we can get this playing though. This was one of the funniest things that we saw from last year. Your boy Neely, right? Comes in, does an amazing job as far as getting out the last guy. Neely gets the last out. He's juiced, right? Obviously a big game, big situation. He ends up getting tossed. I don't know what he said, but he was juiced. He was obviously excited about the moment. Everybody's excited about the moment. And a lot of times you don't see guys get necessarily thrown out for being excited and whatnot, but John Boy did an amazing breakdown of this. And we even see O'Sullivan get crazy too, but I don't think he got thrown out. But later on, you end up hitting a huge home run, grand slam, as a matter of fact. You put the game pretty much out of reach. Another Oppo bomb. By the way, I love seeing you go Oppo. I think that's a huge part of your game. And then you come in with the robot, man. The robot killed me. What made you, like, when did you say, I'm going to hit the robot? And, like, what even made you do that? I'm dying watching it.
Yeah, so I started
no emotion whatsoever.
Yeah. So I started this game. I unfortunately got the warning beforehand, and, like, I don't know, I want to say it was either the second or the third. It was very early on in the game. Long AB, made a good pitch, get the strikeout. And, you get fired up. You show emotion, just like you're supposed to in a big situation.
Right.
And, Neely comes in, bases loaded, we're up by 2. Strikes the guy out. He's all hyped up. And, obviously the tale of unfortunate events happen. And, yeah, I mean, when I hit this, at first it was one of those where you're like, oh, man, like, did I get that? Because I got it really late. And, thankfully it got out. And kind of as I was rounding third, I was just like, I was like, what can I do here? I was like, I have an opportunity right here. What can I do with this? And, yeah, I hit the robo walk. I thought I was walking normal, but looking back at the video, I was walking really weird. And
I think that's what made it funnier.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't really to show anybody up, but I wasn't going to be the next guy to get tossed for anything. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I can't get tossed if I don't do anything.
Low key was to show off the umpires. I love that. I love that, man. And you got to have fun, right? You got to have fun playing the game. And I think that's important, is like guys lose sight of the fact that you're with your boys, you're having a good time, and you can't forget to stay loose a little bit. And I think that that's just as important. And I've seen you play that way too. And I think with as much as you do on the field, you have to be able to find a way to just play the game and not think too seriously. So I think that's important. Last thing I want to touch on is obviously Team USA this past off season or after last year. What's it like to put the USA on the chest, man?
Man, it was always kind of like a lifelong dream. You know, in high school, I didn't do anything with Team USA. And once I got to college, and I didn't even know anything about a collegiate team either until, you know, I was a freshman, and Hunter Barco and Sproat were on that team. And I was like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. Like, you know, maybe one day, you know, God willing, I'll be able to represent. And, you know, basically we got back from Omaha. I drove to Tampa, woke up the next morning at like 6 in the morning, drove to the airport. Next thing you know, that day I was playing a game, and
just right back at
it. It was just a crazy like turn of events in the span of like 36 hours. But it was really an experience like no other. You know, all the guys on that team were great. Everybody, you know, you're playing with the best of the best right there.
Right.
And everybody, there was nobody that was, you know, seemed to be like boisterous or anything. Everybody was chill.
No big egos.
No, not at all. And that's, you know, unexpected. You know, you're sitting there and you're like, oh, there's some dudes here. And, you know, we got along great with everybody. Everybody was really close. We were all hanging out at the hotel. And
that's cool.
Being able to wear the jersey and play against Taipei and Japan was awesome. You couldn't really draw up a better summer.
That's awesome, man. I think those experiences are important because, I mean, next level, you'd be playing against guys from all over, obviously. You'd be playing against guys from all over. So that's awesome that you had that opportunity, man. Well, Jac, that's all I got for you, man. I appreciate you coming through.
Appreciate you for having me, man.
Actually, last thing I want to ask you is, if you had one piece of advice for, you know, anybody that's watching you do your thing, or somebody that wants to be Jac one day, or Jac Tani, right, or have an opportunity to be in your shoes, what would you tell that person or that kid that's looking up to you?
Surround yourself with people who have like-minded goals. You know, always put the work in. You know, talent can only take you so far. Put your head down, work. You know, there's a lot of baseball to be played. That sport's just kind of the sport that keeps on giving. The relationships you make along the way are going to be lifelong relationships. And just have fun with it. You know, it's a fun game. It's something that you just got to enjoy every day and be grateful that God gives you the ability to play it.
Yeah, I love that, man. I appreciate you coming through. Thank you.